Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Liz Myska. And today I have the distinct pleasure of having a person that I consider a lifelong friend that I didn't know 5 years ago because she hadn't arrived on the scene. She hadn't arrived in Worcester yet. So Anna Sorenson, welcome to Connecting the Dots.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
And I want to, take you back to, you're in California. You're living in California. You're working for
Yes.
something that had to do with eye care.
Mm-hmm.
Start there.
Yes, I grew up in Sacramento, California, and spent a decent amount of time in the Bay Area, where I went to school and then worked for a bit at a diabetic retinopathy screening organization. And I had many different responsibilities with that position that I think really helped me break out of my shell and develop some independence. And I would go around to different clinics around the United States to train their staff, typically about 3 or 4 people at a time, nurses, medical assistants, sometimes even doctors, to operate non-mydriatic retinal cameras. So cameras that didn't require dilation, that were placed into the primary care setting to help patients with diabetes, get, if they have any sort of eye problems going on, get diagnosed soon and get the help that they need. They found that many diabetic patients weren't going to see their doctors annually, as recommended, because of many different reasons, lack of access, lack of knowledge that's important, because
Fear, I would imagine fear.
fear.
I don't.
Yeah. And to kind of tackle that problem, my old boss, Dr. Jorge Quadros, had developed this program called IPAX LLC, which he started at UC Berkeley Optometry. And they provided retinal cameras to clinics throughout California initially at no cost or at a low cost. And the people at the clinics were able to upload images for their diabetic patients, usually right after their primary care exams, and then have those images read remotely by licensed and trained ophthalmologists or optometrists for any signs of retinopathy. These are very, very tiny little lesions and signs in the back of the eyes, but these pictures would blow up the images so that you could detect if any kind of microvascular changes are occurring that could potentially cause vision loss. So that was sort of my start into the optometric world, and honestly, I didn't have the best grades and the confidence that I thought that I needed to attend optometry school. So I worked for quite a bit, for about 5 years after obtaining my bachelor's degree, sort of fearful that I wouldn't get in, that I wouldn't be able to perform well. But after a lot of encouragement from my boss, an optometrist, and many friends, I
Took the plunge.
Yeah, I took the plunge. I retook some classes and I worked while I did it, and then I finally applied and I got into MCPHS in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Where is Worcester, Massachusetts?
Yeah. My father is originally from Massachusetts, from Quincy, but I had never visited the state at all. And so I was very excited and curious about what I'd find there. And so in the fall of 2019, I arrived here in Worcester, not knowing anyone around. But luckily, I found someone in my class close to my age, named Mitz, and befriended him. And I also joined a really wonderful group called WalkFit. It was my very first semester here. I had not known anybody, but wow. When I met you and just saw your presence and just how you could command a crowd and get everyone going, I mean, I was hooked. I had to keep coming back.
And you did.
And I did.
And you did.
Yes. Yeah.
And then throughout your 4 years at MCPHS, you were a pivotal partner, trying to recruit other students.
Tried my best during COVID. It wasn't
Yes.
wasn't quite easy.
Yes. Well, during COVID,
we all tried.
It was challenging because, at least from my standpoint, the school had issued an edict to all of you students that, if you commingled with the population and brought back COVID,
Yeah.
it was curtains for you. So you had to, just like the VIPs, just like the visually impaired people, had to modify their behavior.
But in some sense, that also kind of brought us closer together.
Exactly.
We had, our talk fit calls when we couldn't make it together in person.
Right.
And I just befriended so many wonderful people here who showed me the area, the history, the rich culture, just told me about how everything's changed over the years. And I really fell in love with the place. A lot of my classmates from more bustling cities would complain that, this wasn't such an exciting place, but it was absolutely that to me.
Right.
I found really wonderful friends that I don't think I could be apart from for very long.
Well, thank you. And that's why you're back here now. So
Yeah.
you graduated in May of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And well, first let's just back up, because optometry school is 4 years all through the year. You don't get a break.
Yep. Includes the summers.
you don't get a break.
Yep.
But your last year, which would have been started in September of 2022, right?
Actually, it started in May. My first rotation.
For your first rotation.
Yes, the last year of optometry consists of multiple clinical rotations at different hospitals and clinics around the country. With MCPHS, we had 3, and they didn't require us to do one at the school. My first clinical rotation was out at an Air Force base in California. So after making the drive here a few years ago, I made the drive back. And that was quite fun and interesting.
What was that first rotation like? That was a VA clinic?
It was at an Air Force Base hospital.
Okay.
It wasn't a VA. So I was seeing active duty military members who generally had pretty good eye health.
Okay. All right. And
Most were 20/20 uncorrected.
And I was saying, you like the oddities. You
Yes,
like the
yes. I want to see the pathology. I want to
want-
see when things are going wrong. And
Right.
just figure out how to help people.
right.
At that rotation, I wasn't able to see as many patients as many of my peers. So it was a bit tough for me when I transitioned to my second rotation out in Providence, Rhode Island.
And what kind of clinic was that?
That was at a community health center.
Okay.
So much more fast-paced, and 95% of the patients there, I believe, were just Spanish speakers only.
Oh my gosh.
So it was interesting trying to learn a little bit of Spanish to
It was
communicate
interesting
during
how to
the exam.
communicate. And how to communicate. You've got diabetic retinopathy. Was there a lot of diabetic retinopathy amongst that population?
There was a good amount of that,
Right.
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what kind of patients, when you diagnosed them, were the patients dismayed? Did they understand what that meant? Had they heard about they had been diagnosed with diabetes, or they hadn't been diagnosed with diabetes, or it ran the gamut?
Generally, they were already diagnosed with diabetes, but we weren't really allowed to provide any patient education at that particular rotation. So we had techs come in, and then our attending doctors would come in, and they would try to explain everything in Spanish at the very end of the exams. And I saw a variety of patients there of all ages. So, I mean, one of my last patients was about 4 months old.
Wow.
And luckily, her problem was very apparent from a very matted shut, sticky eye. That kind of just indicated that there was a bacterial infection there. So I didn't really have to do too much with that particular child there. But it was I saw a variety of people there, and it was interesting. It was very
You were always reminding me that you had to work on, or you had to try to assist children as well as adults, and tell that again. Your preference is not children.
My preference is not children. And prior to that rotation, I was very terrified of performing pediatric examinations because I don't feel that I get along with. I mean, I get along with children, but I don't think I can relate to them so well. I'm better suited to.
Well, I think also that there's the fear that they're going to rub their eyes, or they're going to turn their head away, and the drops are going to go everywhere, or they're going to resist you.
Yeah.
Was there some of that trepidation that you had as a?
And I maybe lack the patience when
Right.
trying to direct a child, and I can't really get them to look where I'd like them to look.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
My good friend, though, Aeneas, he has the magic touch with the children. He can get them. He really enjoys working with them and performing vision therapy. But I found that I was
Not suited.
enjoying. Yeah, I enjoyed speaking to an older population
Right.
and helping them with their issues.
And then the last rotation,
Mm-hmm.
which would have been in January this year.
Started in January, yes, and I was there through May. Was at the Villages VA in Florida, and wow, was that a very different experience.
Different from the previous two rotations in
Yes.
terms of population, in terms of culture, in terms of attitude. What
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay. give an example of a patient without revealing too much information.
Yes.
Of a patient that you saw there, or like what a typical patient would be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was at a VA clinic there, so they were all veterans, and the one that sticks out the most to me is the patient who told me that he had just purchased a $90,000 car the year prior, and he had come in and just had his visual field tested after a stroke, and unfortunately the right side of his visual field in both eyes was gone, and he no longer had a continuous enough visual field area there to be considered legal to drive. And although that was a state in which we didn't have to report to an RMV or a DMV, we had to make the strong recommendation, document everything, that you are no longer legally allowed to drive. And he told us he wouldn't do it anymore, but you never know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and again, there's no way. You're not mandated reporters, so there's no way for you to follow up on that. But
Only in some states. Some states we can
I
do
know.
that, but not Florida
right.
or Kansas.
Yeah. Oh, really? Or not Kansas? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
How did he react to the news? I'm just curious. Did he poo-poo it, or did he say "oh pshaw," or did he say "I'm doing it anyway," or did he not respond?
He was very devastated and saddened because he wanted to be able to drive that nice car in his retirement.
Right.
But he did tell us that he would stop driving because he knew that it would be unsafe.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that rotation, was there patient education? Or
Yes,
no?
yes.
Okay.
I could educate patients there, and I love doing that.
And so how would you have educated, or how did you educate him?
Well, images are very important there.
Okay.
To show that, the testing revealed that the right side of his visual field was blocked there, and if you were to drive, that would be very dangerous for both yourself and to anybody around you. I wasn't too good at the patient education back then. I didn't have much experience with it because I hadn't really been able to do it at my second, but I was able to develop those skills while I was there with the vets and with some very, very amazing attending doctors. There were 6 there that I was able to learn from, and they were wonderful. They encouraged me and really inspired me to do a residency at the VA after I was done with school. Yeah.
And so that brings us up to now. So in July of 2023, you went to Wichita, Kansas.
I did. I made the drive there to the very center of the country.
And how was that? I mean, you've boomeranged from from West Coast to East Coast and then back again, and then
Yeah, all over.
Now being in the midpoint. What has that experience been like, and what has your residency, now that you're 6 months in, been like?
I was, again, very worried that I wouldn't be able to get along with people because it was from a very outside place. Everyone there that I work with, they're from the Midwest. So I was kind of the outsider, and I was a little terrified.
New kid on the block.
Yeah. But when I got there, I quickly found Korean food. That really helped calm me down. One of my other close friends, the first thing she looked up to when she found out I'd be going to Wichita was whether or not they'd have good Korean food. So there's that, and arcades. So I feel pretty comfortable there now. It's kind of quiet. I mean, it's one of the bigger cities in the area, but you can get across town in 20 minutes. So it's really not that bad. I've been enjoying it there.
And what about your patient?
Yeah. Oh,
goodness. How much more have you learned, and what other skills have you acquired?
Oh, goodness. I feel that just within the first 2 months of being here, I was pushed to do better in my clinical decision-making, in my diagnoses, in my efficiency, and wow, I just feel like I've grown so much, and I have so much more growth to experience. It's been wonderful there. I am so glad that I made this decision to do this residency, even though I initially thought maybe this wasn't the right idea. Maybe I'm away from everyone that I know and love, and I'd rather be with them. But, I'm halfway done with it now. It went by really quickly, and I'll be back soon.
And what did you say? You've seen over 800 patients, I think
yes.
You said?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Over 800 patients.
Over 800 in about the last 5 months.
Wow. And what's, again, atypical, right? That's what you like. You like the atypical things, not the typical things. So,
yes.
So what are some of the atypical things that you've encountered that you've learned from?
Well, I've seen a whole lot of the results of trauma from, many years back when these vets were in the military, and how they've caused, traumatic cataracts or changes to the retina in the back of the eye, just things that I never would see elsewhere. These people went through very unique experiences, and they also, a lot of them have PTSD. And so, approaching them in more gentle manners is really important. And I've seen a whole lot of double vision from different nerve disorders, a whole lot of dry eye, and that's my thing. I really like helping people manage their dryness, because, it has a huge impact, the ocular surface there and your tear film, on how well you can see. And although there are patients that may have some limited vision there, I think working on dry eye can provide them with the best kind of vision that they can have. So it's been working with a lot of dry eye patients.
What would be the cause of dry eye?
There are a couple of different causes of dry eye. Either the aqueous component supplied by the lacrimal gland that's just above or just below your eyebrow there. Either that watery component isn't being delivered as much to your tear film, but more commonly, I think the glands of the lids, when you blink, they're supposed to secrete a little bit of oil to get deposited into the tears to prevent the tears from evaporating as quickly. But those glands can sometimes make a thicker substance that is more of a cheesy or a toothpastey sort of consistency. That could block up the glands, cause damage to them, and make those tears evaporate a whole lot quicker. So using heat and compression and massages, and really stressing this to patients as they come in, because they seem to always forget, if they were told in prior years, about how this could benefit them. So
is it environmental, or would it be infection based, or why, or just that they're just prone, a patient is just prone to dry eye? What are there various causes of that?
Yes, so the environment can play a big role in it. When you're in dry or dusty environments, or you're having a fan constantly blow into your face. There are a lot of patients that I have who have sleep apnea, and they use CPAPs, and that can blow air either through their nostrils or through a mask up into their eyes. I've also noticed in patients that their eyelids don't close completely when they shut their eyes. So when they sleep, a little strip of their ocular tissue is exposed and dries out. So there are many different things that we can do to kind of help rehydrate the eyes and to kind of tackle the dry eye in different ways. I also tell a lot of patients that when you look at your computer screen or your phone or you're concentrating on a task, your blink rate is reduced, usually sometimes by about 30%. So if you're not spreading the tears over your eyes, then the tears dry up a whole lot more quickly, and that can cause blurred vision, that can cause pain in the eyes and foreign body sensation. It can cause watering of the eyes. A lot of patients will come in and say, my eyes water a whole lot, and I'm like, well, your eyes are dry, and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. A little counterintuitive, but it's kind of an overreaction of the body to the dryness.
Okay.
But I feel like a lot of people have that problem, and I really enjoy educating them about it and helping them sort of, alleviate that. Yeah.
Before we started taping, you told the story about a gentleman that you just saw with that had a stroke.
Yes.
Tell that story if you would.
Yes, he was the gentleman that had a stroke, and the right side of his visual field had been cut off so that he could no longer drive legally anymore. And I've had other patients with strokes who have come in, and I've had to modify how I, get their glasses prescription because perhaps they are no longer able to move into the equipment that I have. This residency is a low vision and geriatrics residency, so I get to every other week see a number of patients who have very limited eyesight, and in addition to trying to provide the best glasses prescription we can for them, we also provide them with different tools that they can use. We have a team of people there that can do home visits to determine what sort of modifications in the home can be made. Mm-hmm. We have an O&M instructor, so that's been pretty cool.
Just again for the audience, an O&M instructor is someone who teaches the cane.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a whole team of people.
Yeah.
I know that the veterans legitimately, justifiably, get a lot more services, in terms of vision care,
yes.
In terms of health care than an average citizen. Is there a rehab facility there on site where you are, or again is everything done? The patient comes into the clinic, the vet comes into the clinic, the evaluation is made, and then services are sent to the vet in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we will have the initial evaluation in our clinic, and then our team will determine what we can do from there. Home visits, if we, there are a couple of blind rehab programs, not in Wichita, but
okay.
We can send patients out to them. There's one in Texas that we've sent patients to, so that they can undergo continuous training in how to adjust to a life with changed or limited vision. And that has been invaluable to a lot of people, and some people don't want to go. But
I was going to say, do you have people who are like, no, I'm not blind, so I'm not going?
Well, some that might just think that they don't need those services, right. Or that they're a little afraid to leave their families or their homes that they're so comfortable in for a couple of weeks to go do this training.
Right.
But it can be very, very helpful.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what's next for you, Anna?
That is a good question, Liz, because I'm not quite sure. And people have asked me that recently, and I'm like, oh dear, maybe I should figure that out.
I need to start thinking about this.
So that's something I'm going to be doing soon here, figuring out where to go.
If you were, because again, when I'm hearing your story, I'm hearing a passion for working with people, that have something that seems more catastrophic than just dry eye. I guess I was going, particularly with your diabetic retinopathy, because I know that evidently by the year 2030, and again, I'm not a statistician, but I remember attending a Prevent Blindness, which is an organization,
I've worked with them, yeah.
seminar in, again, this is probably 8 years ago in Washington, D.C., and the presenter, who was from the National Institute of Health, said by 2030, 1 in 3 people will have diabetes, which again, all of the consequences, potential limb loss, vision loss. And then very dramatically, this presenter, who was a woman, started counting off 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and there were over 250 people in the room, and it was just like, whoa, that became like very graphic, like 1 in 3 people with diabetes, and again that I won't say preventable, but potentially because of our lifestyles and the food that we eat and our lack of exercise, somewhat preventable.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, would you ever consider using that knowledge base that you acquired before you went to optometry school in a diabetic retinopathy specialty or practice?
Yeah, I think I would like to continue spreading, I think maybe that diabetic retinopathy program into the primary care setting, just to help out that population that may be in need. But I don't know if I want to.
You don't want to limit yourself.
I don't know.
I'm just pulling on a strand here because I thought
ideas.
I thought how interesting, because that's where you started, and again you talked about your lack of knowledge and your lack of confidence, and yet all during this interview all I could think of is your knowledge has increased and your confidence has increased.
Sure has.
So all of this, it's kind of like, you're squaring that circle, and again, what a wonderful way to and no, I'm not, again, I'm just suggesting that's what I heard from you. So I want to thank you for I put you on the spot by having you come and speak here. But again,
enjoyed talking to you, Liz.
You've been embroidered into my personal life, into my Walk Fit life. You are one of the standard bearers, because Walk Fit was the walking initiative was started with an optometry student. So you became one of those standard bearers, and again, what I always tell anyone who's affiliated or allied with me, that once I've got you, I never let you go. So
And I don't want you to, because you are such a great friend, and
thank you.
I know that we'll be friends for life.
Well, we will, and you will carry on the torch, even when I am no longer here. So thank you, Anna, for being who you are, being part of us.
Thank you, Liz. I wouldn't be here without friends like you.
Thank you. Join us again for another edition of Connecting the Dots.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at lisbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Liz Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, J.D., LLM, in association with Compliments.